and he's the CEO of RiseSharp. Let's learn what are the top tips to get your dream job. I know a lot of us are thinking about that, thinking about what kind of job do we want? How do we get our dream job? Millions of students graduate and even postgraduates are faced with a problem that they do not have a pathway to a job or a career. So a lot of times when we go, we get our degrees, we kind of get that, and then we are thinking about, okay, now what do I do? What kind of a job do I get? So Get Job Ready, How to Land Your Dream Job Out of College is the first book of its type, and it provides India's college students with a career pathway framework as a foundational element to improve their job readiness. A little bit about Vasu, and I'm going to get more into him. He's the co-founder and CEO of RiseSharp, which is a social impact venture whose mission is to change the college to job trajectory for India's college students. And I'm really looking forward to our session today. So a very, very warm welcome, Vasu. Excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, thank you.
So I'm going to start with my first question because you've done a lot of things. Why the focus on getting college students ready for careers?
It's a good question. First of all, I'm a parent of 3 kids. Two graduated from college. One actually graduated from grad school yesterday.
Congratulations.
Thank you. And the third one is in college now. So that's for one. So I've seen as a parent, and I've seen the young kids, my kids and others. I moved to US for higher studies around 32 years ago, 1989. But I was one of the fortunate people over the last 32 years who have made a lot of trips to India, predominantly for the business, but I spent a lot of time with the family and friends. I would say I made probably over 100 trips to India over the last 30 years or so. So quite a few. But while a lot of it is good, over those years, I came across many students, college students, fresh graduates, family, friends, extended network, where kids, from, for example, a son of my classmate from 10th grade or high school, going to college in Karimnagar district in Telangana, and coming back home with a degree, but not having an outcome.
Yes.
Whether it's taking a Uber and talking to the driver from Hyderabad airport to my apartment in Hyderabad city, talking about their family, their kids. His daughter, one of the Uber driver's daughter, was a college graduate, and back at home with a degree, an engineering degree, but no outcome. And you can there are millions and millions of such students in India. Some reports say it's anywhere from 60 to 70% of college graduates in India do not have an outcome on hand the day they graduate from college. And it is multiplied when you're looking at people from tier 2 cities, rural areas, families with economically challenged, or socially challenged backgrounds. So it is not only a problem for those students, their parents, their families, colleges, but also I feel like it is a big problem for this country and the society.
I don't know. I mean, I used to run Jagran Josh, which is one of the leading education portals. And at that time, and I'll just check the statistics with you, there were a lot of engineers that were not getting jobs for 12,000 or 15,000 rupees, where there were a lot of electricians and plumbers in demand, because there was an oversupply in that particular area. But we'll get much, much more deeper into that. And it was a very, very shocking statistics. But
that is correct.
Yeah. Because I was shocked because, you spend a lot of money, you think you're going to become an engineer, you're going to get this dream job, but you find that actually possibly there's also an overflow or too many people that are competing for the same jobs. So since we are a portal that focuses a lot on women, are there any specific problems that you see women face, or especially the young women of today?
Sure, but definitely, I think the women face a lot of problems. If you Google it, you can get 5, 10, 20, 15 articles mentioning what are the challenges. But especially looking at from the freshers, the women transitioning from educational institutions to the workplace, I see a few big challenges with respect to women. One being lack of access to resources or infrastructure when it comes to experiential or extracurricular activities compared to the men and the boys, whether it's sports, whether it's other activities. So women lack those, and what fundamentally does is by not having those resources and support, they lack opportunity to really build those foundational employability skills. Whether it's the teamwork, creativity, problem solving, etc. We'll talk more about it. The second is, as you probably all of you know, including the audience, the social norms, the expectations, the unconscious or conscious sometimes, the biases in the society, the women place. The third thing I see women really facing is the lack of mentorship. I know it's getting better. You see more and more role models, but the mentoring is a long way to go with respect to especially women. But if you look at what they bring to the table, women, the young women, we're talking about in this case, from college to moving to workplaces, they're strong when it comes to empathy, which is one of the very critical elements to be a successful a professional, a manager, a CEO, or anything in between. The second is women tend to, based on the research, women tend to have strong foundational skills, such as ability to work with the people, ability to work in a team, ability to communicate, or the work ethic. So I think while they face a lot of challenges, they do have certain strong strengths. So I suggest my viewpoint, just as everybody else is we have to figure out how do we address those lack of support, mentoring, and infrastructure.
I'm going to just do a follow-up question on that. And I will, of course, let you get to your tips because I'm sure that's what the audience is focusing on. They also say that women were hit more severely in COVID times. Do you see that happening also for college students?
Sure, it does. When whether it's fortunately or unfortunately, because when women raise kids tend to be doing well. That's the fortunate part of it. Unfortunate part of it is they do have multiple jobs. So during the COVID, when they work from home, you have to juggle multiple things. Versus going to office and all. So I definitely see that it affected. When the company scaled back, I think women tends to be more in the service industry. Predominant, majority of them, if you look at the service industry, are the women, and the service industry was one of the industries hit hard during the COVID times.
Now I'm going to ask you this because a lot of times we still feel that the best jobs are still overseas. We're still running. We want to get that degree. We want to get that job. Is it still the case? Are there as good opportunities in India, or is it still better when you start thinking about getting job ready? Are you also going to give us that flavor on domestic versus international?
Sure. I think it's an excellent question. I think it's a question a lot of parents are probably asking, students are asking, in India and across the world. I have to say, for some people's disappointment probably is, the overseas opportunities are not where they were 32 years ago. With respect to gap between India versus our developing countries like India versus developed countries like the US and all. US still has a lot of opportunities, has a great educational system, etc. Social framework and all. Having said that, I've been spending a lot of time in India with this venture over the last 3 years or so. There are tremendous opportunities in India. I mean, just look at the startup ecosystem in India, the unicorns that are being created in India, compare that to. So I think, there's a good saying, many of you are familiar with, you have to see where the puck is heading, not where the puck is today, or yesterday. So I believe the opportunities for people from country like India are in India right now. Tremendous opportunities, not only in the startups, but also in the opportunities to grow in the organization professionally.
Now we hear that the job market is on fire. It's never been a better time to look for a job. But that's also causing a lot of anxiety in people because they feel, okay, I should get this huge package. I should get this huge thing. Oh, he got a job. Why didn't I get a job? Tell us what actually the job market is like at the moment for freshers.
Sure. Here is another question, which I'm very, I've done a lot of research on this before writing the book because it is fundamental to, fundamental element to of writing this book. which is to, looking at the 60-70% of them not have college graduates not having an outcome on the day one. I had to look at the root cause of it. So we had to go out and talk to the HR industry and look at the research reports, talk to the colleges, students, etc., and the government officials and all. So I have a strong views on that. Now the job market is definitely pretty hot. One of the things I talk to the students when I go visit colleges in India, as a part of this book, as a part of the RiseSharp, is that don't let anyone tell you there is a lack of jobs in India. I'm not being a politician because I'm not one of those associated any parties.
But then I will do a rebuttal right now. But most people say, okay, that's in the tech area or that's in the big cities. So please answer that too as you answer this question.
Sure, definitely. So extend on it. India is one of the fastest growing countries in G20. It was the fastest growing country in G20 before COVID, and it will come back to that very soon in the very near future. And India has a capacity to create about 10 million new jobs a year. It has a capacity to create 10 million new jobs. It's creating about around 4 million new jobs today. The reason, first, what is driving the growth, and I'll come back to the reasons why it's not, it has a capacity, but it hasn't created yet. The demand, the consumer demand in this country has skyrocketed, as we all can see. Second, India's startup ecosystem has been creating tremendous job growth. Millions of jobs. The startups alone can create millions of jobs they're creating, and they have a potential to create many more jobs. And the third driver is the export potential for the India's products and services. And yes, it is product goes much beyond the Western countries like UK and the potential for the exports, and goes much beyond the IT. It can go from to consumer products to the defense industry and everything in between. So the drivers of the Indian growth are those three: the high consumer demand, the startup ecosystem, and the strong potential or high potential for the exports.
So now let's get into how do I get that dream job? Because according to you, the environment is there, the jobs are there, the opportunity is there. So now I should be able to get my dream job. So I turn it over to you.
Sure. But that's a good lead into, this is discussion, and the good lead into, why, I got into this, the venture and the book and the discussion is, so there has to be gap. The gap, what is the gap between, India having an ability to create jobs and at the same time, having 60-70% of college graduates not having an outcome on the day they complete their education, is fundamentally comes down to their job readiness. You can read as much as you want online or printed newspapers and magazines. The fundamental what it comes down to is the Indian college graduates, majority of them are not employable. Okay.
Is that because the educational institutes are not training them, or is that the big gap?
Sure. So yes, I would say yes. The Indian education system has served India very well for the first 30, 40, 50 years or so of independence. But India has evolved significantly with respect to its move towards the market-driven economy. And with that market-driven economy comes certain expectations from these employers. So what the employers are looking for today is not only a degree certificate, hard skills, but they're looking for the employability skills or the job readiness or the, what we call is the soft skills. And I'll talk a little bit more about what it means to be a job ready candidate, what the employers are looking for. But fundamentally, that is the gap. The gap is lack of job readiness, which comes down to basic.
I guess you're going to lead into this. So how does one get job ready? Because we typically think we go to college, we get a degree, we will be job ready. So what do we have to do beyond that college education to actually be job ready and be employable?
Sure. Excellent question. Fundamentally, what it comes down to is, if you look at the Western countries like the US and all that have created a tremendous job growth, or their journey, the college students' journey in the US or UK, etc., is no longer about just taking classes, exams, and getting certificates. And India's college journey, educational journey, is still an academic journey, which is good, but that alone is not good enough to get an outcome. Means India's college journey, Indian college students' journey cannot be just about taking classes, achieving certain percentages or marks, passing tests, and then getting a certificate. It has to go beyond that. So what that beyond is, the college students in India also have to have in parallel what I call is a career pathway that produces an outcome. So the academic pathway, as I said, it has done extremely well in India, maybe to somewhat some rigid way, that it produces, you take courses, you take the class exams, and then you produces a certificate. It means like a factory. It does pretty well. BCom, BA, MBA, BTech, whatever the degree happens to be. It's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, etc. Similarly, the career pathway, what it does is it helps you build those foundational job readiness skills to produce an outcome. That means the fundamental 5 skills. So let's look at a high level. What does it take to produce an outcome, irrespective of whether it's the US or India? Fundamentally, this tool of an outcome is a 3-legged stool. So the outcome is on 3 legs. One is the education, a degree, a certificate, whatever you call it. That's pretty strong leg in India, just as in many other countries. The second leg is what I call is the employability skills, the foundational skills. Those are 5 foundational skills. 1, ability to communicate, the communication skills. Ability to work in a team, means work with others, not my way, your way, but a team way. Third, digital competence. Depending upon your job, you don't have to write a Java code, or you don't have to write a marketing plan, but you have to have an ability to use certain technology tools, digital tools, to do your job effectively. Whether you call that Outlook, whether you call that a PowerPoint, whether you call that Instagram, or whatever that is, depending upon your job, or whether you call it an app on your iPhone so that you can drive that Uber car or Ola car. The fourth is the creative problem solving. And most of us know very well that there are no fixed solutions to these days problems. The solutions are creative. You have to think through when you face with a problem, and the organization faces a problem. And the last one is what I call is a work ethic / and the professionalism. Ability to deliver on responsibly and reliably.
Now, Vasu, if colleges are not teaching us this, so how does a student learn these skills? The second leg. How do you get that second leg?
Sure. So the second leg is that, I'll come back to it in a second. Let me give you a third leg very quickly. So the third leg of the stool is job search readiness. You can have all the degrees in the world, you can have all the employability skills in the world, but if you don't put your story forward, best foot forward, then you're not going to be successful. That's what I call it by job search readiness. So you have to have a certificate, degree, or knowledge. You have to have the foundational employability skills, and the third is job search readiness. Now, coming into so the book focuses on the RiseSharp focuses on those 2 missing legs in India: the employability skills and the job search readiness. Okay. So now, coming to your question, go deeper into how do you build these skills? And I'll tell you how you can't build those skills. You cannot build most of those skills by reading a book, by watching a YouTube video, or by going to training institute for 1 month, or 1 week, or 3 months of training. You build those foundational skills through what people call it life's experiences.
So is it like an internship? Is it like doing freelancing? I mean, let's get concrete. So people say, you know what? All right, how am I going to build my career pathway along with building my academic pathway?
So sounds good. So if you look at the, just to show the book, half of the content in the book is those experiences. So what happens is, when you talk about an experience for a college student, first thing that comes to mind for many people, if not most of them, is the internship. Internship is only one of the 1,000 other ways to build those foundational skills, such as teamwork, such as work ethic, such as communication and the creative problem solving, digital competence. You can gain through what we call is academic experiences. You can gain through on-campus experiences, extracurricular experiences, and external experiences. Let's talk about it. For example, academic experiences. It could be case studies. It could be an academic field trip. It could be an academic service project. It could be a research project, part of the class XYZ. It could be a speaker coming into that class to speaking about a topic on that particular subject. Those are what I call is the experiences. And I can go on and on, many of those. Let's look at within the campus itself. One can work as a research assistant, a teaching assistant. One can work as a peer tutor, tutoring your first year as a final year student or a third year student, or being strong in math. You can tutor someone, who is not strong in math. Okay. You can have, be a campus ambassador, promoting the campus, its offerings, its academic offering, or you can be campus ambassador for many organizations, private organizations and public organizations. Now, coming to a third group of experiences, extracurricular. They can go from being in an art group club, being in a sports club, playing a cricket, rowing, and 1,000 other ways to do on extracurricular side. So each one of these.
Yeah, I'm going to ask you a question. Sorry, because I'm trying to think what the audience is imagining. Please also put in your questions. But a lot of people feel that, okay, great, I did a BA or whatever. Let me go to one of these online places and let me take another academic qualification in a very specific core area. How does that fit into all of this?
So you nailed it. One of the biggest differences between, so let's take an example. As I said it, I sometimes personalize it. My son who graduated, got a degree in MBA yesterday. And look at his journey. Just as an example, the journey in the US for a degree called MBA is minimum 4 to 5 years experience before you get into an MBA. There is a reason for it. It's not that the colleges don't want more students in MBA classes. No. To be beneficial, to really benefit from an MBA degree, those class discussion, case studies, you have to have a real world experience. Okay, so there is always a room to grow on academically. Go get a next degree, whether it's a master's in computer science or MBA or whatever that degree happens to be.
Or a very specific skill specialization.
Skill set. But fundamentally, what you need is in between, while you're progressing through that journey, are the experiences. Those could be full-time jobs between your bachelor's of applied mathematics, and MBA. It could be between BE and MTech, because you have to have a real-world experiences to apply and understand.
But a lot of students will say that is where they get stuck. Because they don't have the experience, nobody is willing to hire them. It's like a chicken and an egg situation. So how do I get that first leg in the door of getting that practical experience?
No, I think so. That's So I believe first of all, it is fundamentally a foundational issue. You have what I mean by that at the institution level, at the organization level, at the at the government whatever the certification level and all, they have to provide these mechanisms, provide these pathways to have experiences while they progress through the college. Okay. Now the chicken and egg game is, I just said it, to build these extracurriculars. Internship is only one of the 1,000 ways you can build it. See, how do you demonstrate your work ethic or professionalism? You can do 1,999 other ways. For example, if you like playing cricket, committing to it, progressing through that cricket. If you if you like to do volunteer, committing to it, progressing through the service project or so, doing academic projects, So building these foundational skills does not require to have an internship only. They can be built and demonstrated, and that's what the companies are looking for. Companies understand that you can't bring job experience as a fresher, but what they are not willing to train on or overlook, your lack of communication skills, your lack of work ethic or professionalism.
And communication skills is a big area, which I have also noticed a lot of people actually fall behind it. And
Right.
especially more and more, especially when we're going for multinational companies or even some of the bigger companies, that expertise in English has
Right.
now also become kind of a de facto, kind of a necessary need. I'd love to hear your comments on that.
Sure. So I think, I think that's the world right now. Predominantly most of the jobs, require, especially for a country like India, the English language skills. So I'm not a proponent or against, English language versus, other languages, but English language is one of the languages you need. I'm not saying that's the only language. I tell, people, one of the biggest regrets I have in my life, looking at my own kids, looking at working with other, high school students and college students, in my circle, is that I spent my, bachelor's of, mechanical engineering degree in Kolhapur at Shivaji University, and I did not learn a Marathi language. That's one of the biggest regrets I have. So what I mean by that is, we have to, English. We have to look at English as one of the ways to, progress through what we want to achieve professionally. What it takes to, achieve or whatever the aspirations are. But with respect to communication, the English is only one part of the communication. Communication is your ability to express, your ability to write, your ability to speak, your ability to empathize with the people you're working with. So it goes much, much beyond. And the way to build those is through practice, and not through reading a book. Reading a book can give you a context. Reading a book can give you a starting point. But the ways to build and retain, develop and retain those skills are through practice. And that practice could be, as I said, academic experiences. It could be, extracurricular experiences or the external, like internships, etc.
Now, I'm going to give you a real life example because, of course, I'm going to give it in my case. I have an intern that's working with me, very smart guy, awesome, great at his work. And he probably does know English. And I have told him that, listen, you can only speak to me in English, but he is just so shy. And I've spaced that with so many. I've hired over 400, 500 people. And I found that that language, that hiccup, is like really a bigger stopping point for a lot of people. I mean, I can communicate in Hindi and English, so it's not an issue so much for me. But I know that some of the talent just gets stopped right there because of their not so comfortable. So how do people get comfortable with it? Because I do feel it's becoming one of those critical skills, even though having a second language, because everything also, if you look, is going multilingual, even in India.
Correct. And I think you probably saw the research. There's a deep research done. Having a proficiency in one language actually helps in another language. Means having a proficiency in Hindi or Telugu, Telangana, where I come from, should help you, develop these other languages. For example, if English happens to be. To answer your question, how do you build that? I think that it has to start early. I don't know if you noticed it. I noticed it. Most of the students these days, especially in states that I've been traveling, they actually went through from grade 1 to until now English medium. So what's happening is the practice is not happening in those academic sessions. That they're not able to. How do you get out of your comfort zone? How do you whether it's speaking in English, communicating, or speaking on a session like this, or writing, a paper, whatever it is. How do you get out of your comfort zone? By practicing, by having a people around you who can help push you, make you comfortable, getting out of your comfort zone. So I say the best way to fix that problem or any other problem with respect to employability skills, the foundational skills, is not only just at the college level, but even before that, is to really balance two pathways from beginning, which is one is to academic pathway. Yes, academics are critical, but I have yet to come across an HR VP or a recruiter or a manager or a CEO, and I mean it, come across
I
someone
would say even, I think you and I, how much of our skills, our academic skills, do we really use?
And give me one example. I can't find one example where some of those people said, Vasu, I'm going to hire someone who got a 95% over someone who got a 90%. The academically strong doesn't mean you have to be 100%. what you need to do be successful is to have this parallel pathway where you're building these foundational skills to be successful in life and successful professionally. And the
And so
way to do that,
when
way
do
to
you
do that is
recommend, yeah, to start this? You said like as early as possible. So parents should be thinking about it very, very early. Kids that are in college, when should they start thinking about it?
but as soon as possible, as early as possible. That's when, the sooner you start, better it is, because you get more opportunities to, develop those, do have gain experiences in life, but also more up, you tend to, the young tend to, grasp easily, quickly, and retain. So that, the youth is very critical. The young age is very critical to mold those. So I'm sure there's a lot of people talking about it. My job is not to tell people that you stop on the academic pathway, but what my,
Just build two pathways.
yeah, two pathways. You have to build it, because, when I dropped my daughter off, and that's what actually triggered my this whole, where I saw the solution. When I dropped into 2017, my daughter, my wife and I dropped at a college for an orientation. On the first day, she was introduced at this college where she went to in the morning to an academic advisor, and his job was, he's one of the professors. Job was to help Kriti figure out what she wants to major in, what does she want to study. She was interested in classics, whatever. Don't ask me why. Those are her interests. So his job is to help her, kind of guide her through that process. But the same orientation day, first day of the college, they introduced her to a career guidance counselor. And her job was, and that center's job was, to help Kriti figure out what does she want to do 5 years from now, 10 years from now, next summer. It doesn't mean the plans and aspirations don't change. They will change, but they always have to think and get some guidance. So that's what I mean by career pathway, the parallel pathway. Nowhere it says we as a humans can only do one thing.
So good. So I think the first part that we're learning is that we need to get that experiential. We need to start very, very early. We need to start to get the second pathway. But when we think about getting job ready, a lot of us still think about those core skills, which are the job search skills. Let's talk about those also.
Sure. So I think thank you for leaning into it. So how do you what can you do to get a job? What are some key tips? There are 10 tips in the book. But I'm going to focus on 4 fundamental tips when it comes to freshers, transitioning successfully from college to career. Then I'll talk about 4 more that could apply to people who either left the workplace for whatever the reason and want to come back, maybe women who went back and took a break during the COVID, and they want to come back to workplace, or the people who have an experience. So let's talk about the freshers, the first, first and most important thing is a resume. I know you touched on it early on in the conversation. So the resume, one of the things you don't want to do is experimental resume. You don't want to create an experimental resume. Resume's job is not to have a lot of colors. Resume's job is to be very creative, because a resume is supposed to just to convey, who you are. Put that first best impression in front of the eyes of a recruiter or whoever is the reviewing the resume. So so you want to make sure that your resume is not experimental. It's not with respect to fonts, sizes, font colors, the etc. Because you want to leave the first best impression. Your goal of a resume is to get an interview. You want to make sure it is proofread. I know a lot of people tell it's all over the place. But you see it probably, and I see it in my job, this company, too many times.
Too many errors, too many typos.
Too many errors. It is humanly thing to do it. Even after so many years of working with the students, working myself, building my own resumes, my kids' resumes, student resumes, I can make mistakes. That's humans make mistakes. Our eyes cannot pick up sometimes. So it's very critical to have a resume read by multiple people. Okay, whether it's a family, friends, professor, or your previous co-workers at an internship, etc. Again, On the resume's job, you don't want to be dishonest. You want to be, clear. Resume is not about how much content you want to put it on. Resume has to be, concise and get the message across with respect to that particular job. Okay. So in case of a resume, especially for freshers, I believe, and it is true that, and based on the research again, is the less is better. Okay. But within that less, what it means is use the action, developed, created, whatever you have done it, through those experiences, whether extracurricular experiences, experiential experiences, or the internships or volunteer work, etc. You want to describe in a way where you made an impact, where you made a contribution. I've seen too many resumes in India where the job title and under that it is a job description, the job they applied in the previous position. What the job description was. Okay, so the one is the resume. So that's a good foundation. The second tip is apply for jobs that match your interests, aspirations, but also skills. What it means is it's not about the numbers, how many jobs you apply. Yes, we need to apply to more jobs than few postings, but we have to have some fit based on our interest, based on our skills, because that will get you to an interview and possibly to a job. So what you want to do is when it comes to applying to job, looking for, is to spend time wisely. Focus, just as everything else in the life, focus helps you get the job done quicker, whatever the job, in this case, getting a job. Make sure the net that you're trying to apply to is large enough. So you want to make sure that while you want to focus, it's not too narrow. Because career is no straight line. It's a progression of steps, stages, sometimes zigzag. Okay. Third, I say, is prepare for interview. So the first one was resume. The second was focusing on what type of jobs you want to apply. The third is preparing for interview. Preparing for interview, it could be, I simple as this, knowing the company a little better than somebody else who is going to come to interview for that job. Understanding what the role is, who you may be interviewing, if it's possible. Dressing well for the interview. See, dressing well for interview is not about the employer, not about the interview. It's about you, how confident you feel. How you feel the success yourself, that you can be successful in that role. By taking a couple of copies of a resume. I can't tell you enough how many times the candidates show up late to the interview. I tell sometimes, let me give you one simple tip. When I speak to the students, I say, let me leave with one tip. You show up to an interview in India on time, your chances have doubled of getting a job.
Any tips for Zoom interviews? Because that is also, because the first interviews are usually now happening, not even in person, they're happening actually on the screens.
That's a good one. So if you look back, how do you prepare for a Zoom interview? You prepare for a Zoom interview by practice. Not only interviewing practice, but if you have used Zoom before, to do an academic.
Google Meet. I would say it's critical
Google,
right now.
Learn
Google Meet, learn Zoom, and have a good internet connection, because
exactly.
Nothing is more frustrating.
Yeah. So by having that digital competence, going back to those five foundations, having an ability to present yourself, ability to team. So you gain those skills, not specific tool. It doesn't have to be because it may not be Zoom. About 5 years from now, it may be some other tool. The key is, have you used it before? In a different situations. The fourth, tip I have is to, write a thank you email. What a simple, means having a follow-up. The reason you have to follow up after an interview is, one, you want to express interest in the job. If you are interested, truly interested in the job, based on the conversation, based on the job role description, you want to emphasizing your fit with that role. Okay. But most importantly, put yourself in front of the person who interviewed and probably interviewed a few others after you left. So it may take 5 minutes to write a thank you email or whatever that is, the way you communicate. but it could do tremendous.
But Vasu, these sound very simple. They sound kind of very basic, right? So is it that we are missing out still on the basic hygiene in terms of getting a job?
I think fundamentally what it goes back to is the third leg of the stool. See, the second leg of the stool and third leg of the stool. The first leg of the stool is gaining the knowledge. By taking classes, exams, and all, you gain a knowledge which you cannot retain more than 10% based on the research if you do not practice it. Okay, so that leg is there. But unfortunately, you're not able to retain. The second leg is actually helps you build these things, the experiences. If you had done a part-time job to help mom pay the electricity bill or whatever the monthly bill, or if you have volunteered at a local nursing home, or volunteered at a local tutoring center, or if you have tutored somebody who is in maybe high school or school, then you build some of these skills, the work ethic, the professionalism, how to present, how to communicate, and all. And of course, lack of those, now you're not able to do some of the critical components of the job search readiness, which is have ability to interview, ability to present well in interview, ability to follow up after an interview, or having a resume. See, resume is not about how beautiful it looks. Yeah, well-formatted resume is critical, but resume is all about what is on the resume. And how do you get something onto your resume? By having a time, by doing something, you get something onto the resume. You don't get something onto the resume. So if you look at what happens is when you focus predominantly or 100% on academic pathway, the concept of a job search readiness, even a concept of a resume, is introduced in the final year or a fourth semester or a seventh semester, depending upon your degree. It is too late. If you don't understand what it is that is inside a resume, then how do you build towards it?
So one of the good tips that somebody gave was that continue to write your resume as you're going through college, because you can always delete.
Exactly, because that's what goes on the resume. Keep track of your projects. Once you tell, someone understands that, resume can have a portfolio. Resumes can have a project. Resumes can have a service engagements or activities. Resume can also have a sports activities. Then they say, okay, now let me look for some clubs. Let me look for some activities, and then pursue those, our portfolio or projects, etc.
I'm going to ask you now, what about social media and how important is that? Because as more and more it is about your social profile, LinkedIn, this, that, the other, how important is that in the job search market today?
So I think social media profiles can do more bad than a good if done wrong. So what it is, as I said, I'm a parent of 3 kids. Kids are kids. They grow up, they learn, they mature as they progress, through their life. Having said that, you want to make sure that if you have a social media profile, or at least you clean up before you start looking for the professional, entering into the professional world, if there is a way to. But also fundamentally, Sukriti, think of it. The social media represents, in a way, your values. The way you interact on social media conveys your principles. So if you have found a strong foundation, a simple value systems, whatever that is, whether you gain from your parents, your family, your friends, or your friends at school, or your work experiences, those are the ones which drive, I think, how we behave on social media. Having said that, the other side is social media is not about digital competence for many of us. Social media is for some, marketing managers, maybe they need to be, but social, being active on Facebook is not being digitally competent. So what is being active on Instagram is not, active, doesn't mean not to participate. Digitally competency means, can you write an email? If your job requires you to write a document, can you use a Word document, Google Doc, etc. So I say social media is good. It can help you build some of the skills and give you what I call is a billboard to present who you are as a person and express your thoughts and ideas on on your problems in your community, or problems in the world, whatever that happens to be. So it gives you that avenue. But at the same time, you want to make sure that the social media profiles are professional, because you're entering into a professional world which is different, has certain expectations, and you want to be able to meet those expectations, not because they expect, because that will help you get to achieve your aspirations, progress through your career, achieve whatever the goals you set out on that side of the equation.
Awesome. So now we're going to come to the tips for women wanting to return back to work, or people that have taken a break. And then if anybody has questions, please do put them. We would love to take your questions.
Sure, we would love to hear, about their thoughts and how many are looking for a job. What do they think it takes to, succeed. So for the women, people who have taken a break, have experience getting into, the few items. It doesn't. All the other things I talked about are relevant. The resume, by interviewing, preparing for interview, are all critical. But a few areas, four tips I have, kind of go a little bit further. One is to network.
Yes.
People who have experience, people who have left the workplace for whatever the reasons, want to come back. There's no better way to get back into the workforce than in networking. Okay. All jobs are not online. A lot of jobs these days, especially in the current market, a lot of jobs are created when they see a candidate, especially experienced jobs. Yes, even so on executive level jobs, you give the ideas to corporations, because corporations are a business of one thing is to grow, take on more opportunity, bigger opportunities and all. Okay, so the focus on the networking, and the networking, there are a lot of tips in the books on the networking. One of the key parts of a networking is to go into a networking not to expect a job. I tell my kids, my son, but for example, or my daughter, I tell them, go and talk to people when you are not asking for a job.
Yes.
Let's say you want to go in 5 years from my son says, I want to go into sports management, maybe one day, 5-10 years from now. I say, if you want to go into sports management, this is the time to explore and build some relationships. And first of all, you can learn more about the industry, see if you like it, you want to go in that direction. Second is, they can help you possibly down the road to see what else can do to strengthen your resume, your profile, and how to get there. Second is, I know it's very critical for even freshers to conduct a research, know what company you're interviewing, what do they do, what products, services they offer, what is the role offers, what are the responsibilities. But it is more so for people who are coming back into the workplace after a gap with an experience. So they need to conduct a deeper research on the company, the role, for example, what are the new products, what are the new opportunities, what are the competitive differentiators, where the competition is, So the second tip is to conduct a deeper research. Third is create a cover letter that is very specific to job. I know a lot of people talk about it.
I was going to ask you, is a cover letter become passé? No, because I get 2-liners. Here is my resume, please.
I think so. And I know a lot of people talk about it when it comes to freshers also, to have a cover letter. I think it is important, but it is so important when it comes to experienced person. And I say that's where the cover letter can play a huge role, especially if you're coming back after a gap, if you're moving into a next role or moving into a different industry.
I will say it also in another way, because most of this time you receive everything on email, and at least the cover letter lets you exactly focus in on those 2-3 reasons why I should go ahead and click and even open your resume.
Exactly.
I mean, I'll tell you from a very, very simple perspective, because, first you want to read why the person is possibly interested, and have they even caught your attention? Because when you get, so many emails, it's those 2 minutes to shine to tell me, please click and open me.
Correct. And in many aspects of our life, we do a lot of things to get ready, in a sense, present ourselves well. But I think, it's the same thing can come to apply to a job when you're searching for a job. The last, fourth, and there are many other tips, but fourth key is when you're coming back to work, women, for example, are with an experience, are moving into a different industry, are looking for a much, higher level role, whatever that happens to be. Emphasize your employability skills. de-emphasize the need for the hard skills, because those roles and the corporations are willing to invest, take a bet on some of the lack of hard skills, but not on the soft skills or employability skills and all. So what I mean by that is to emphasize your past experiences, impact, or contribution with respect to communication, teamwork, work ethic, problem solving, digital competence. So I said, so it's one. So that's where I think about the biggest difference would be, is to say you bring that experience where it matters. The tools will continue to evolve. It doesn't mean you don't need to know the tools, but you can learn them. And so if you look at it, I mean, think of yourself, all of you, audience too. I want you to think about one point. If there are two people in an organization in the same role, and the organization has to downsize, what are the chances that they will downsize someone who does not have a good work ethic, professionalism, or communication skills, versus someone who doesn't know the next best tool that just came out yesterday? Think about it. And higher you move up in the organization, more emphasis is paid for those. So I think when it comes to, again, recapping, networking, conducting a deeper research, creating a personalized, a cover letter, because that means you're telling the real key story there by emphasizing your employability skills, the soft skills, the job readiness.
Thank you. We'll take Bhavna's question. Go ahead, Bhavna.
Yeah, hi, hello.
Yeah, hi, Bhavna.
Yeah, why don't we get a positive response from the recruiter? Is it all a robot there?
A lot of people actually ask this question also because of the AI. So then should you be doing a lot of stuffing in your resume?
Good. So the recruiting is, thank you for asking that question, Bhavna. So recruiting industry is one of the very first industries to, employ technology. I'm sure there are some more, but, recruiting is one of those, what they call is, applicant tracking systems. They basically take the Word document or PDF document, resume, cover letter you upload, and they process it into keywords, just like Google does the searches and all, and then try to match it. So I think what they do is, so they mechanically see if there's a match between the job description, the requirements, and the resume, and they tend to make a decision. And, so I think it's very critical for freshers, and when it comes to having a right resume, right keywords and all. And it's also very critical for the experienced people or people, who are getting back into the workplace to network. Because when you're networking, you're bypassing the ATS to some extent. So I agree with you. It's the technology kind of playing the role there.
I'm going to follow up also that, okay, if you've written a thank you letter, you've written back to HR, what is the right way to follow up if you've received no response back from them?
Sure. If you strongly feel that is the right opportunity for you, and you feel like there's a fit there, there's nothing wrong in following up. Many times, the job recruiting decisions take time. The manager who needs to approve may be traveling, or maybe on a vacation, maybe on a holiday, whatever happened, maybe on a time difference and all. So so my strategy on it is, if you strongly feel that is the right opportunity and you've done it, you should follow up, not once, but multiple times until you hear the decision. At the same time, you don't want to pester. So, come across. So what you want to do is you give it a, certain frequency. You follow up maybe after, after you're sending the thank you email, I say follow up after maybe a week or 5 days. You're just checking in to see if they need an additional information from you. If there is anything you can answer more, or if there's an opportunity for you to come back and have another conversation. Okay. And if you don't hear back, do not take it as a negative. Follow up again 2 days, 3 days later. So and then you do that maybe 3-4 times. And if you have not heard back within that time frame, I think it's time to possibly move on.
Yeah,
Excuse
there's
me.
go ahead,
Excuse
Bhavna.
me. Yeah, I think there's the email comes with a no reply format. Usually it comes with a no reply format. You cannot
Correct.
reply back, it seems, or they are not reading it.
Correct. So when you submit a job, and that's what happens. But when you interview with someone, you have an opportunity to ask their contact information, and and that's a good right thing to do, is to so that you can follow up. So someone who interviewed you, met face to face or over a Zoom call, virtually, they should ask for the contact information, or they should try to find a contact information from the HR person if you want to follow up with the recruiting, the actual operations manager.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other questions? If somebody has, would love to take them. I'd love to get some more questions in on this before I take Vasu's last tip. But I think this is always the frustration, because you think everything went well, and then you feel that everything went into a black hole.
Correct.
Oh, I think we have no other questions. Any last comments before we close for today?
Sure. Education is the best possible pathway for upward mobility. There is no doubt. So there is nothing comes even close to, for the society to move people upwards, is the education is the best pathway. But for that promise to be delivered, it has to deliver a successful outcome. You can't have my high school friend's son coming back home with a degree, no outcome. You can't have the Uber driver daughter coming back with an engineering degree and be at home or going to another degree just because you can't spend time. So it has to have an outcome. It can't be just about classes, exams, and certificates. It has to have that parallel pathway. Education is the closest to a silver bullet to address the generational poverty in the society. There's no doubt. So it is the right thing to do. I think the emphasis is on education is there, but it has to be in the right places. The emphasis has to be about not more degrees, not more classes, it's not more exams, etc. Not more percentages from 97 to 99, whatever that is. Because ultimately what you're looking for, that a young person or the family or the society or the country is looking for, community is looking for, is the success. Having the person, that individual, be productive and responsible citizen. Okay. So
what else does RiseSharp do? I know you've written this book, but so how do you train people at a massive level to be job ready?
Sure. So what RiseSharp does is, that's an excellent question. Thank you for asking me that question. First of all, the reason I wrote a book is I felt the technology alone can't solve this problem. To solve this macro foundational problem, it required a thought leadership. It required a conversation with a broader set of people. And I felt a book and a partner like a penguin is the best way to do it. There's no doubt in it. And it is the right way to do it. So I get engaged and talk. I start the conversation about it, about this, having this parallel pathway. Now, coming to RiseSharp, RiseSharp is a technology solution. There is no shortage of training providers, whether it's a Java training, PHP training, marketing training, you name it. They're there in Amirpet, in Hyderabad. They're there in Chennai. They're there in training centers in Gurgaon and everything in between. What is missing is the foundational, the pathway, the awareness at the institution level, at the family level, at the government level. Okay. So the technology solution, what RiseSharp provides, is basically a technology to manage this pathway. So what RiseSharp basically brings to the table is the two critical components. One is an ability to connect the employers on one side with the job applicants on the other side as a fresh talent, whether it's a part-time job, internship, research project, etc. Or many other ways to do it. The second thing it does is it provides a suite of resources to how to get job ready on these foundational skills and how to get a job search ready. One last thing I would say is you pointed out, it provides the resume builder as you progress through the college. Not only educates on what is a resume, what content is inside the resume, but ability to build it as you progress through the college by adding portfolio projects, etc.
Thank you. Thank you, Vasu. Thank you for sharing all these tips with us. I hope it's going to help the listeners a lot. I hope it will help all of you get that dream job. And please do, send us on Facebook or LinkedIn. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thanks to the audience.